All right, good morning. Good Monday morning. Welcome to Coffee Talk, episode 33 of Coffee Talk, to be exact. Now, we didn't have one last week. So kind of thanks to everybody that was sending in emails or whatever and saying, did I miss it? Did you post it somewhere else? So that makes me feel good to know that everybody's watching. We're a little over 3,000 downloads on the Spotify and the YouTube version. Doing really well. So thanks for watching, everybody. And thanks for watching this one. Now it's a long one. In fact, it's so long. I didn't bring the coffee cup this morning. I have a feeling it's going to stretch into lunchtime. So I brought, the regular thermos. Let's just keep it cold for this conversation. I thought maybe it'd be a little slow this last week, but no, no, no. Lots happened. And so this is gonna be, I got a lot to talk about this week. And so let's get you guys kind of right to it, so to speak. That way we can this may take hours. This may be a very long episode. Okay. And I got to get on a plane. So I got to get to Detroit this week for some time with the OEs. After, though, this agenda, I might get a text message or a phone call in the middle of the airport that says, no, 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 don't come. We don't want to talk to you. So we're going to talk about more MSOs are continue to cancel leases and non-renew. Aztec hit a spiral that I didn't think they could go into, but we're going to talk about it. And that's probably one of the benefits of not having a show this past week is that got to kind of muster a little bit and fester, and people started sending in making some nice comments. So we'll talk about all those. We're going to talk about teardown and storage laws. They're popping up everywhere. Kind of the what and the why and what you need to be thinking about. Why insurers say no. I get lots of messages from people that'll start with something. Let's say it's Eagle MMS and they start using it and they're getting lots of success. And then suddenly the insurance company starts saying no and they go, well, I have to stop using the service because the insurers are saying no. And I'm like, well, what if they say no to whatever next week? So why does an insurer say no? And then what does that really mean to you? We're going to talk about OE credibility, OE liability, and OE defense. They're getting a little comedic on all three levels. And then obviously we'll talk about a little bit of what's on the shelf because that one's become really more about me as we move things in and I start redecorating the home office. And then we've decided we're not going to do another shop right now, but we are going to do another little office space just because I don't want everybody at my house. So if I can have a place where we can all kind of go and meet, that would be great. And then I have clients and some other people coming to town, and I don't want them at my house either. So it's going to be best that we get an office. So deciding what goes in there and what stays here has been kind of fun, and what goes to storage and some of those other things while we wait until maybe next year we'll build a new shop. So okay, all right. MSOs continue to non-renew. More and more people are popping up and posting that shops that had previously sold to an MSO, most of them in the early stages, the people that were like 2015 to 2018 and that, are getting notices of non-renew. This one popped up on a public site, so I'm not feeling bad about sharing it. And no, she's not either. Laura sold two shops kind of in that 2018 range to Caliber. Caliber has non-renewed one of those locations. And so, what do you do? Do you go back and operate a body shop? Do you sell the real estate? Do you find a new company to come in? And the thing about it that I kind of monitor the situation for a couple of reasons. Unfortunately, too many people in this industry tend to gauge our health of the industry, like how well body shop collision repair as a whole is doing. And they traditionally look to the MSO. And for years, I think we've been kind of screaming like Chicken Little, hey, all is not well in Denmark. There's this cliff coming, there's this cliff coming, there's this cliff coming, and everyone's kind of went, no, 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 these guys are doing fine, and they represent such a volume of the industry and whatever. And it's good to know they're not doing fine either right now. Claim count is low, everybody's slow. Some of these MSOs had sometimes 3 and 4 locations within the same zip code. They can't keep all of those busy right now. So you begin to reduce your overhead and then consolidate your human resources. So if I got this technician pool at these 4 stores, but I can't keep them busy at the 4, then maybe I need 2. and I can keep them busy in 2 locations, and we choose which ones of those there will. A lot of these older buildings, so there's that market saturation, but then it's just the increasing cost. These MSOs entered into these buyouts that were triple net leases. So they were making large payments. Some of these rent payments were, $15,000 to $20,000 a month. And then they had to take care of all the upkeep on top of that. So it wasn't like there was a landlord. Every time the building leaked, these paint booths were old. The upkeep on all of these older body shops, and the thought of like, do I update them? Do I put a new roof on this place? Do I put a new paint booth in this old building? What do I don't even own this property. Why do I want to spend so much money upgrading it? Is causing them to look at some of those olders and decide, I'm either going to greenfield build a new one or just let that location go completely. So they're looking at their cost and some things. And it just, for the rest of us, that's smart business. So I don't blame them for what they're doing. There was a lot of times they bought, there's one place in Texas I can stand, and I literally, probably not now because the arthritis in my shoulders, I don't throw very good anymore. But I could throw a rock and hit 2 other signs of that same MSO, and I'm like, literally, you're blocks from each other. How did this even make sense to you to buy these? And I guess back then, COVID, everybody was slammed up with work, and it was almost like if you could have a sign on a door, you could make money. And now here we are after that, and booking cars and keeping business is not as easy or as prolific as it used to be, and everybody's looking at ways to consolidate and really and truthfully keep the human resource. If you don't keep the technicians busy, they'll leave and try to go somewhere where they can stay busy. That's the catch-22 of paying people in like flat rate commission. So how do we keep the human resources we have? I always say, it's kind of like family. They ain't much, but they're all we got in a lot of ways. So nobody wants to lose that. So we'll just be keeping an eye on that. There's a lot of people that sort of retired from our industry that are having to come back and make decisions. Do I come back and become a body shop owner again? Do I try to sell it again to somebody else? Do I just sell the real estate completely and get out of it? And so that's kind of a really interesting position for some people to be in right now as they try to navigate that. Okay. So a big fan of post-repair inspections. I'll tell you this, insurance companies are not your problem. I was doing a speech last week. I was in Rhode Island and New York, and I was, everybody was like, the insurers are doing this, insurers are doing that, the insurers won't pay this. And I'm like, yeah, they're not your problem. Your problem is the other peer shops in your market that will say yes to whatever the insurance company wants. So you can't blame an insurer for taking advantage of something that somebody else is going to say they're going to do in warranty. So I'm a big fan of post-repair inspections. You want to change your market. You want to change what the insurance companies have to say yes or no to. You do that by getting rid of the low-performing shops in your market, or the ones that are the yes men, so to speak. And we do that through post-repair inspections. But there's some things about post-repair inspections that I know I've kind of screamed it from the hills, but I'm going to keep talking about it. Number one, if a customer comes to you for a post-repair inspection, don't write an estimate. That's nowhere near what you do in phase 1. Unfortunately, if you write an estimate and you present it back to the customer and goes, everyone's going to take to correct all the stuff that's wrong with your car, when that gets presented to an insurer or the at-fault shop, it gets jumbled with whose responsibility is what are the legal ramifications of each one of those responsibilities, and then from an insurer's perspective, who else can I blame? That's a very important psychological game. So don't write an estimate. Just don't. If you want some coaching on that, I'm happy to help you. But please stop writing an estimate and handing it to somebody and saying, this is what you're going to have to pay me to fix it, because that's not how the post-repair inspections work at all. Number 2, ask the customer what their desired outcome is. A lot of times a customer brings a car to you not necessarily for a post-repair inspection. They may bring it to you for a repair. They may bring it to you for a post-repair inspection. But when you discover something, or you don't assume that you're going to take this ball and run with it to the 50-yard line or across the goalpost or whatever, you need to sit down and have a conversation with the customer and ask them what their desired outcome is. What they're willing to do or not willing to do in this situation. Number three, you need a contract of services. While this isn't a repair necessarily like you're used to, there needs to be a contract between you and the person that brought you the car. If you're going to do partial tear down, if you're going to do anything to this car, you need to have something that gave you permission and then that had some sort of chargeables attached to it that you're not just, out here doing all this for free. I have shops that get locked into arguments for months and months and months with at-fault insurers or the original repairing shop. And then it all comes down to it. They reach an agreement with the customer, and the shop's like, well, what about me? And you didn't have a contract. Like, I know you want to get paid, and that's cute, but you didn't have anything. And then you need to think about using the three buckets. So we'll talk about the three buckets all the time. Bucket number one is you're just gonna, and so this is why I don't write an estimate. I just look at the car. Bucket one is what was from the first loss that was not estimated and was not repaired. In other words, what are things still owed under the first claim? So typically when you go back to an insurance company on a post-repair inspection, the initial is, that's not our fault, not our business. That's all the shop, that's their warranty. We don't have a dog in that fight. So to get their attention, I like to have bucket one. Hey, you're right, what the shop did, terrible, horrible, their warranty applies, but here are other things that should have been part of the claim that weren't paid for. And then we have to ask ourselves, is there some sort of percentage statute on the salvage title or whatever that would have deemed the vehicle a total. Bucket two is what was repaired and repaired improperly. So the work that the shop did do but did wrong, that's warranty. That's, most consumer protection laws under a warranty workmanship basically say that the original or the originator has a chance to try to make it right? You just can't turn around and say, well, here's a cost to repair everything. So that's that warranty. So here's the things that they did that they didn't do right. Bucket three are the things that were charged for but not performed at all. And those are your fraud charges. And what I like about that is, number one, gives the insurer somebody else to be mad at. They're automatically going to think that I'm just there trying to charge money or take advantage of this situation, and that I'm making up stuff and I'm fluffing it or doing whatever. So to say, here's some things that you paid for that you weren't done, it helps redirect that insurer's thought process where I'm not the bad guy. So typically as the re-inspecting shop, you don't want to be the bad guy. Number two, with it being fraud, then it's reasonable to say why the customer would not want to go back to that shop. So if the shop goes, we're not paying anybody anything, they got to bring it back here, we're going to re-repair it, that's all we're willing to do. That's somewhat part of how consumer protection works, unless there's a reason or a reasonable reason why the customer would not want to go back there. Well, if I have all this fraud, in other words, these people charged me for all these things and they didn't do it, why should I be trusted to go back or why should I trust them to go back and give them another chance to deceive me again? Those three buckets are critically important. They'll change conversations. I have shops that go and write their estimate and they go, here's what it's going to take. They hand it to the at-fault shop, and the at-fault shop calls the customer and says, we're not doing nothing. You got to bring it back here. And then we end up in this fight. And then generally somebody else has to step in that's a little bit bigger in the, I guess, the bully game, so to speak, and try to bring everybody back to the table. And sometimes when those opinions are made about you and the customer and you're trying to get away for something for nothing and you're just trying to get your car totaled and whatever, it's hard to get people back to the table. So I'm just going to keep saying this again. Post-repair inspections are going to pick up, and I'm grateful for it and I am thankful for it, but you need to handle them the right way. So before you just fire off at the mouth or write an estimate or think you know what's going on, get some advice from somebody. You can pay me for it. I'll charge you for some advice. Or we've got some videos and some things online that you can watch, but get some advice from somebody. It's not ever as simple as I think everybody thinks that they want to make it. Okay, you guys ready? Let's have a little fun with Aztec, because at this point, it's just amusing me greatly. Okay, all right. So a lot happened last week while I was gone. There was an amendment to the lawsuit. So you have a company, you have a guy that has a company that he sold to Repairify, which is the parent company of Aztec. And there are other people involved in this that have sold companies, and some of these people that have sold companies to Repairify, I consider friends. So they're also in the back end of this, watching this carefully. But this guy had a company he sold, and one of the things is we're going to buy your company for this number, and that number looks really, really good. But a lot of those people didn't get that whole number. They were told to reinvest that into like Aztec, and then when Aztec sold, then all you guys are going to make all your money back, blah, blah, blah. When we covered the lawsuit the first time, we talked about how the guy says back then he was told any day now they're going to sell it because 3M is going to come in and give them a big investment, and then they're going to take it from there. 3M did invest, so we all saw that press release come through Repair Driven News 4 or 5 years ago or so about that. And I think all of us went, why is 3M investing in this? We were all a little like, doesn't seem like it's up their alley worth of stuff. And 3M invests in lots of things. I think, you know, the insurance companies have investment arms too and invest in lots of startups or whatever. So that got, let's see, updated, and a new plaintiff, so to speak, has joined the party, and it is a Aztec person that had been terminated, which kind of interesting. You know, I told you guys the first time I started covering this that I was really interested in the Ferrari. Like there was all this talk about the Ferrari, the Ferrari, the Ferrari. Well, with the update, Bloomberg Law also issued a story and explains the Ferrari in detail. So I've got a picture there. You can go read the story. So I now know what happened to the Ferrari. It did involve a Bentley as well. So I found that very interesting. But that was, well, that also, while that was happening, you guys saw that last week, or not last week, the last time I had done a show, that I talked about the layoffs. There was another round of layoffs. So that was kind of the second round. Now, since even this, there was a third round of layoffs that was interesting. And so there were some questions that came up on the layoffs. Now, I just want to give you kind of the background of where this goes, because it's sort of all public information. Okay. So what you're seeing is an email from Craig Edmonds, who is the president of Aztec, to all employees it appears within Repairify, that came out in October, basically telling everyone that nobody but Kennedy is allowed to respond or talk to me. So the sentence actually says, going forward, Kennedy is going to take point on reviewing and reacting to any external industry blog post, etc., including what is posted by Collision Hub, which in parentheses, Craig says, which I recommend our folks should unfollow. Yeah, that probably wasn't, I mean, as soon as you tell me not to, it's like saying don't look at the wreck or don't look at the sun and everybody looks, right? Like, I mean, like as soon as you tell people to unfollow, it means people are going to follow. He said he realizes there's been a lot of frustration, and they're fortunate to have someone as talented as Kennedy who can focus on external communications and respond for us. Okay, well, the only reason I wanted to share this with you is that after the last coffee talk, I basically said, you know, I made a comment at I shared the coffee talk on LinkedIn and said, hey, here it was. And I believe the lead doesn't even mention Aztec. I was really mad at Progressive, which, by the way, that one got interesting too. But I was really mad at Progressive and something else. But buried in kind of the end was an update on Aztec and the recent layoffs and some concern about whether there was any U.S. technicians left that were troubleshooting or doing diagnostics or whatever, and then what some of the rules were that was. So I'm going to assume that this response I got was Kennedy, since according to Craig's email, she's the only one that was authorized to respond to me in public. So, I mean, that's completely an assumption by my part. Could be anybody. Because we talked about, hey, there's less than 20 technicians. They said, or she said, or whoever from Aztec said, we in fact have over 190 US-based technicians and are extremely proud of our workforce, our diverse workforce located in Australia, the UK, and Mexico. Okay, this sounds like a dialogue at this point. So I responded, okay, is that 190 US-based technicians that can perform OE scans and calibrations? In other words, some of the allegations were that really wasn't technicians that were responding on the phone. Some of those were people that were in mobile areas. So there were some boots on the ground people in some places. There were some Aztec employees, but they're actually embedded and work within certain collision repair centers or whatever. And so that doesn't necessarily mean those 190 or whatever. So are those 190 techs that can perform OE scans and calibrations? And then also we had gotten a note that the lead architect or programmer for ADAS Think was let go. In fact, we had seen a message get posted on a hospital site where in fact the person had been let go and had been let go while their child was in the NICU. And so that got sent out everywhere in a bunch of forums or whatever. And then I shared basically from within side some Aztec people saying there are 17 total US remote techs left that we can see. And I'm assuming that they're looking at, you know, I know I could go in when I was in corporate and I could see the employees assigned to X locations or whatever. But it's definitely less than 20. I then said, hey, while you're here, since we have your attention and you're watching the videos, while you're here, there was also comments being made that IT and security was also cut and let go in the last one, that there had been an IT breach and a lot of shop information had been let go, and that the CTO was gone. And one message basically said that programming was cut by 80% and is being outsourced. And so I included those screenshots of the messages that were being sent in. And you can see here, it says, I thought I would let you know that Repairify Aztec just let go a lot of technical employees this week, security analysts, developers, a bunch of scan technicians, offshoring most of the work to a contractor. And it goes on there. So I here you go. All right. I mean, if it is Kennedy, if in fact she's following Craig's email that says she's the only one that's allowed to respond to Collision Hub, then I'm going to assume that that message about 190 technicians was from her. So we listed some other things there. Shocker, we never got a response. I mean, I guess they didn't really want to respond. They just wanted to say. So we would have liked to known some more clarity on that. It kept going, which I said is probably good that we didn't have a show last week, that people could keep commenting and adding. So just screenshot, because you can go to LinkedIn and find all this and see we're not altering it or adding anything to it. You let go all of your best people during the first round of COVID. The OG crew who helped build the company and really cared about the process and company, that crew would have done anything to see it succeed the right way. And then we have Philip G that comes in here. And I wanted to share it because he wanted to let me know that I think the CTO was not actually terminated. The CTO left on his own accord, for what other people have told me was around the breach and the security incident as well. But he just says, without violating NDAs, he can say, I was not fired in March, but I will also say that I'm no longer with the company as of April. Funny seeing Aztec comment here, as if commenting on your page of all people would garner sympathy from the people who already follow you. I can't say anything really, unfortunately, other than you are a micro celebrity within the walls of that company and live rent-free in certain people's minds, and it's honestly quite hilarious. What can I say? Starting to become quite a fan myself. Trust me, everybody there sees your post and follows your pages to see what you're going to say next. So for all of you that are following and listening within the walls of Aztec Repairify, to see what I'll say next, howdy, how you doing? How's things going? Thanks for so I did tell Philip there I was very excited to learn more about the Ferrari. I did get some more Ferrari information because of what Bloomberg Law had ran. There apparently was an original lawsuit over this Ferrari Bentley situation or whatever. So you can link out through that to Bloomberg, and if you want to pay like the money, you can read the whole thing. Very interesting. I'm just still every now and then I'll put on my insurer hat, and as I read all this and I watch all this stuff happening, I still like feel like I need to go grab a cup of coffee and sit down with Geico and go, what the hell are you doing? Like, I mean, we all need vendor partnerships as insurers. We've had them historically for a long, long time. Copart, Enterprise, IAA. We've had these great vendor partners. We can't do claims without vendor partners, but those vendor partners have to have the utmost trust, credibility, integrity, respect. I mean, like they've got to almost be Jesus because that's a big there's a lot on the line for an insurer when it trusts part of its claims process and how it indemnifies and all of that to somebody. So you need them to be above average. Like through my years, and I'll give a little shout out to Enterprise and the Taylor family. I don't know if there's better people on the planet than the Taylor family. Like I have watched some of the things that some insurers do, and I'll specifically call out State Farm, what State Farm did with the whole Hertz thing. Man, if I was Enterprise, I would have gotten a little revenge on that one. But they don't because that's just not the kind of people they are. I mean, like they really are um, it's an incredible family. You can tell it's a family business. It's still owned and ran by the family, and they still treat it as day one. I mean, like nothing's changed about that. And um, so respect to them, because even I'm sometimes going, why don't you tell these insurers to just, and they won't do it. So your vendors have to have this above reproach. I've never had a problem out of Copart. I've never had a problem out of IAA in my life. Um, I'm just still amazed that, if Geico got into this situation not knowing, I mean, like I always tell people, there's always that crazy cousin we all have that we just couldn't quite know how bad they were until it was too late. If that's the case, like, then there's still time to hit the exit button here because I can't imagine I'm Geico and I want any of these people on a witness stand, like part of a deposition, part of discovery. Like I don't want any of that. But I mean, that's up to Geico, but that's up to them. So there was more, I like to say, but wait, there's more, right? So as it droned on, um, more people begin to log in and weigh in on this. Is there, in fact, 190 technicians in the US that can do scans and calibrations? Some people started saying we already have Mexico technicians that are doing Michigan-based scans without a Michigan license. When we've been told for years it couldn't happen, but they've been told that that law or rule has changed. So that could be true. It says so. It states that they called someone in Michigan and told me that didn't matter. I don't know if that's Michigan as a state or this specifically speaks to Ford because there was a lot of conversations going on around Ford in that. Um, and then I get these messages, so I just had to, you don't know me, but I check your activity section for some therapy on a weekly basis. Keep fighting the good fight. So yeah, that's kind of funny. But it just seems that it's constantly, there's this constant change of employees. This was about the time, this comment here was about the time that I got another round of messages that said there was another round of layoffs that had happened. That's not uncommon. You don't typically come in and like wipe every job or whatever you wanted to do in the same week. There's HR has to take a break, right? So sometimes that stuff happens across, 2-3 weeks at a time. So apparently there's continuing layoffs that continue to happen. And then to top it all off, which I guess again I say is why it was pretty good that we didn't have a show last week. There was an announcement of change of leadership within Repairify. So Repairify is that parent company that oversees it. So the leadership of Aztec, to my knowledge, still is the same. So old Craig's over there, and Kennedy's still over there. They're all still over there. But now we have a new CEO and a new CTO over Repairify. They're coming from Odessa, basically. So if any of you are in the industry or familiar with you know what Odessa is. You're just gonna want to go through and take a look at their backgrounds and what they're being. That's not technology officer or CTO. It's transformation officer, and So that's probably the whole business model, the whole workflow, the whole plan, everything is going to go under. I don't want to say under a knife, but with these hires, it's pretty, and these announcements, it's pretty easy where you can see the business going as the lawsuits continue to move forward, and we'll be looking for any updates. I think I've lost a little bit of my desire now that I know more about the Ferrari. That was just like, I didn't care about the house in Key West and all that as much as I did about the Ferrari. I guess it's because I'm a car girl. And I'm like, wait, there was a Ferrari? Did everybody in the company get a Ferrari? And where is it? And where is it missing? But now I know the story to that. So a little bit laid back there. But if you get a chance, you can go online and you can read the updates to the lawsuit. You can also hit the link in Bloomberg Law and you can go read about the Ferrari. And then you can hit back on LinkedIn and you can read through all of the comments and everything that people have shared across all of the different forums since last episode 32 of Coffee Talk had dropped and talked about kind of the layoffs back then and what was going on. All right, let's talk about teardown and storage laws. The law of Oklahoma did end up passing. It's on the governor's desk. Everybody's trying to get the governor to veto it. It's probably not going to happen. And then California, obviously, this story, the bar conducted a case study on a fee complaint, and they published it, and it's really terrible. So I'm not even going to go into detail what the bar came up with. The California bar, without hurting their feelings, is really a paper tiger of idiots. Half the stuff that the bar does, like, they just don't have a grasp. I feel like mostly they see things through a mechanical lens more than anything and just don't really have a grasp. You're supposed to be body repair, but doesn't really seem to have a grasp how this world works. But it's a good chance for us to stop and talk about teardown and storage and what body shops need to think about. Because too many of you out there, the average total loss storage bill up until about 4 or 5 years ago was $700. And now we're sitting somewhere around 3,000. So everybody kind of woke up and realized, hey, if total losses are going to get to 47%, which I'm just going to remind everybody that when I started talking about that, you all made fun of me and said I didn't know what I was talking about. And now here we are. Who's laughing now? But if total losses become over half of reported claims and claim volume goes down, no, I mean, there's just no other way to say it. Body shops will have to have revenue off of total losses to stay open. You can't stay open based on just the repairables, specifically for how terrible you guys write estimates right now and for how terrible your labor compensation models are. So you need that revenue. And a lot of shops woke up and said, hey, I'm going to look at revenue. Unfortunately, a lot of shops woke up and just said, I want it, not I'm going to go learn how to do it. So people saw other things get posted and they just started saying, I'm going to charge this and that. Unfortunately, we have some people that believe that getting a car in and tearing it down is their entitlement and they don't see it as hostage. And that's what's causing a lot of the problems. So please, if you're in a state that has one of these laws that's getting passed, there are some things you can do and some ways to work around it. I've released a date for my Oklahoma class now that it's moving a little forward. Apologies to those of you who've been waiting, but intelligently, someone within the Oklahoma legislator called and said, Kristen, you probably don't want to put that class out until it's finalized because you don't want people to change language or do whatever. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. So I'm going to shut up until that one either dies or actually comes into play. So the Oklahoma class, we've released a date for that. And it's 2 weeks from Thursday. And I'll be covering that one a little bit, but there's ways around it. But if you're not in one of these states, here's how not to get in this situation. Number one, you need a contract. You need a services agreement. You don't need an authorization to repair and a direction to pay. What contractually are you and the customer entering into an agreement on? What are they authorizing you to do or not do? And what is their understanding of what that's going to cost? And then are you exercising your own version of a fiduciary duty? So we talk all the time about the fiduciary responsibilities of an insurer. You as a collision repairer have your own, right? Like you're in a position of authority and more control. And so you have a duty to think of the customer first. That means you don't just pull a car in and tear it down. No, at no point do you probably really need to do that anymore. Like I say it over and over, tear down, blueprint, kind of bullshit these days, just for the ways claims have changed, and it just ends up creating a lot of hassle. So there's a lot that we can do to help start a claim and a claim process and determination of loss without necessarily bringing the car in, tearing it down, and taking up a bunch of parts carts and then sticking that thing back out in the wind and the elements or whatever, with doors and glass and everything else removed out of them. So, but if you're going to do that, you better damn well have some sort of agreement in place that specifically states what you were instructed to do by the insurer, or I'm sorry, by the vehicle owner, because you don't want to have an insurer call you back and go, yeah, we've decided to total, and you go, oh, here's a bill for $5,000. That's a big punch in the nose. And then you can't be mad when their response is to punch back and try to figure out a way not to pay it, so to speak. So make sure you have a services agreement. Make sure that you're doing what makes sense. If the vehicle's a total loss, don't even touch it. Just put it in the back fence and send a letter that says, we think your vehicle's a total loss. If the insurer goes, we think it needs an estimate, great. There needs to be a letter process going back and forth between you that just says, we're happy to, but it's going to cost X to get a good whatever. Are you authorizing those expenses? And then make sure that you have a detail of your services and your fees and what they are. You should have definitions for everything. So what is storage? What is security? What is environmental protection? What is, all of these different fees need to have a definition for them. And then you need to be communicating your fees at least every 72 hours. I mean, so every 72 hours, there needs to be an email to the customer that says, hey, as of today, your fees are X. And then as of today, your fees are X. Like, I always tell people, you never want it to be a surprise. If it takes 20 something days for the insurer decides total loss, the first time anyone's hearing your number shouldn't be on that day when someone calls for charges. At that point, you've screwed up royally. I mean, just if you did a teardown and you want to say that you had $3,000 or $4,000 in teardown expenses, who authorized that specifically? Like, you can't just say, well, we told the customer we're going to write an estimate and we'd have to do some teardown. It is reasonable for the customer to believe, well, you're going to take a bumper off, and what is that? A couple hours, right? So most of where we're at now is because some shops did some abuse of what they thought they were getting on a total. A lot of people just thought, oh, this car's a total, I'm going to have a fee, and if you don't pay me, the car don't leave. And now I have people getting replevin, and this one cracked me up because I got a call from an attorney this week on this situation, and facing a replevin charge from the good neighbor. And they wanted some advice. And so they start the conversation with, I want to talk to you about this situation, whatever. And I'm like, great, who's the shop in what state? And they're like, well, it's on. I'm like, great, who's the shop in what state? I mean, like, there's some shops that I kind of want to know what I'm about to step in before I give anything or say anything. And the guy goes back and forth, and he finally gives me a state. And I'm like, oh, that's one of the states I'm sort of banned from. I'm not allowed to come to any of the association meetings or whatever. I'm like, great, who's the shop? He goes back and forth. He goes, well, I can't tell you that because we don't have an agreement or an NDA or whatever. I'm like, cool. My retainer fee's $5,000. You can send me the retainer. I'll sign your NDA, and then you can tell me all about it, and I'll give you my best advice. Well, no, I don't really need that. I just want your advice. So I just want to run it. I know you want some free advice. Great. So we finally go back and forth. He finally tells me who the shop is, and I'm laughing my ass off because it's a board member of one of the national associations that really, really doesn't like me. But everybody doesn't like somebody till they need their help. And when it comes to getting served replevin from State Farm, then my phone rings and everybody goes, how do we beat it? And I go, where's your contract? Well, I didn't have one of those. Oh, you're screwed. That contract, I always tell people, Erica wrote it, has that language in there for a reason, because in the late 90s, early 2000s, we did replevin a lot. And so Erica updated her contract to include the paragraph she has in it to prevent replevin. Like, just, we learn from either winning or losing. That's how we learn. And there's no way around it. I know we think sometimes, I meet a lot of shops that think they're special. They think because they're part of an association or they're on the board of this or they do this, that, well, the insurers won't mess with me. Oh, no, they'll mess with you, right? Like they don't care. So If you're going to charge teardown, if you're going to charge storage, if you're going to have revenue off of total losses, which you should, it should be a revenue line of your business, then you need to handle that business accordingly. So you need to make sure you've got the right contract language. You need to make sure that you have the right communication process, that you don't run into a situation where you're accused of, you brought a car in that you knew was a total loss, you tore it down, you're trying to charge $5,000, $6,000 a tear down on a car that was only worth 50 bucks. That should never happen. And I should never have to talk to a customer that says, I didn't authorize them to tear down. And the customer gets shown a contract and we go, right here you did. And they go, well, you said you were going to write an estimate. I thought that meant you'd take a couple little parts off and peek behind the curtain, and not that you would take the car completely down. I've seen some of these where they are completely disassembled as if they are going to paint. I don't know why you would want to do that. That's putting the car out on the parking lot, and that's a lot of risk. You have, under bailment law, you assume risk for how care, custody, and control of that vehicle. It's thunderstorm and hail season. That plastic ain't gonna last long at all if you're pushing those cars out there. So be very careful with what you're doing. It's definitely charges and fees that you're associated with. I don't want to see this legislated too much. There is something to say with, if an insurer doesn't think that this is going to cost them anything, that they will delay forever settling on total losses with customers. So there is a little bit of a built-in incentive when shops can charge to hopefully make insurers move faster. But then there's also some things we can do to make the insurer move faster too. And we need to do that the right way. This isn't just, I know we've talked a lot about some shops. We have some shops that are making $1 million to $500,000 a year in total loss charges, and that's just great revenue that they can reinvest. They use it for salaries for technicians, so that when the shop gets slow, it's not like they're going to lose technicians. There's lots of value. It is a healthy part of a shop's economic. I guess it's part of your economic health in a lot of ways. It has to be there these days. It can't just be. We used to think we didn't have to make money off total losses. We'd make money off repairables, and that was when total losses were maybe 8 to 9%. They're going to get to that 47%, and so that has to be a revenue source. And so insurers, you don't want that not to be a revenue source. MSOs, you don't want a lot of this shit to happen, because you're going to end up with a lot of cars left in you, and you don't have a lot of space. And if you don't have any place to put repairables because insurers have left a ton of totals on your lot, then that's going to be a problem as well. All right, so let's talk about why insurers say no. A couple of things. Rigo shared this in a group in our collision. It's public knowledge there, in the talking about how when you've been in this business a long time, as the economy starts to do this, you watch estimates start to do that as well. And it's really somewhat counterintuitive. When the work gets slower, that's when it's easier for us to take back control of a market. When there's a ton of work everywhere and it's flying around, and sometimes when it's harder. But what'll happen in this industry is work gets slow and everybody panics. Particularly DRP shops. You start thinking that you can do something to be more competitive in your marketplace, and get more cars in, and the estimates get worse and worse. The labor times get worse and worse. The concessions on refinishing and everything, it becomes this incredible race to the bottom. So it's like I was talking earlier on post-repair inspections. The insurers are not your worst enemy. Your peers are your worst enemy. So you'll see this happen, and then at the same time, you'll see insurers start to say no to things that they had previously always historically said yes to. And some of it right now is you have some people going, well, I was getting paid for Eagle and now the insurers say no, and so I'm going to cancel my subscription. And I'm like, what, are you stupid? Like, it has to be, if that works, if an insurer just changes their mind and starts saying no to something, and all of you go, okay, I guess I can't get paid for it anymore, then why would they say yes to anything? At this point, why wouldn't I just say no to everything and see who fights me on it? And those will be the people I pay. So at this point, for the rest of this year, when I told you guys a couple years ago, I kept telling everybody this is going to get ugly, it's going to get brutal, it's going to get bloody, it's going to be the worst you've ever seen. And everybody's looking at me like, this chick doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. And then here we are in 2025, and everybody's like, I've never seen anything like this in my life, right? The rest of the year is going to get even bloodier and more insane on what is being said no to. And that's going to be harder for the independents to deal with because your DRPs will feel more scared than you will. And we're all scared right now, right? There's less work. Um, it's slow. We all feel like we're just one bad week away from losing it all, going bankrupt. All those fears are very real and very relevant. And the MSOs feel them and the DRPs feel that too. Their thing is that they feel like they can make it up. Like, because I'm on a DRP, I can give a little now and I'm going to lose a little money, but I'll make it up later. And what they don't understand is that never comes back, right? We had a little ground gained in COVID because we had so much work. But then we have moments like this where everybody gives up everything that was gained. So there's really not an incentive for insurers to say yes to a lot of things, whether that's blending, whether that's part replacement, repair times, much less invoices and material invoices and things that you really do need. So that's why they say no. They say no because when they do, there's always a bunch of people that are willing to say, okay. And we know that that's not really how it works. We know that it ends up being poor repairs. The consumer pays. We see all that, but adjusters don't see all that. They're just on the phone talking to people every day. So be sure and don't take no for an answer, right? Like you've got to push it. That means you have to push it to the customer. Technically, if we're talking about indemnification and what an insurance company owes, it's not owed until it's incurred. So if you never charge the customer, it's technically never owed. It's, see, I was right. I didn't know that. They didn't make the customer pay for it. That's really every time you accept no and you don't charge the customer, you're proving the insurer right. They really didn't know for it because you didn't charge them for it. So why would they pay for it if you're not going to charge it? That's where the charging the customer thing comes in. And I get it's ugly, especially right now. There's things you can do, whether it's RTAs, whether it's small claims court. There's ways you can help the consumer, but you absolutely just can't take no for an answer right now. All this erosion, the economy and some things will bounce back, some things will rectify itself, but some things can erode away, and we just don't ever get those chances back again. So on that same note, I found this was really interesting. This was sent out to a bunch of shops, how these shops got their email addresses, whether CCC sold them or somebody sold a bunch of shops' email addresses. This came out as a newsletter. The title and the subject line, it came to everybody's email, was the 800-pound gorilla and why Copart's rise should have shop owners paying attention. And here's what it's talking about. It goes back and talks, maybe it's 3-4 years ago. I'm losing track of time. Copart went around and started buying racetracks. Wildly intelligent. It saves them a crap ton of money with the EPA. Because you have land that basically has already had oil and gas and all kinds of other stuff spilled on it. So I'm sure that gives them tons of savings by buying racetracks. There's a reason those were targeted. like technically, I could probably park more cars at one of these abandoned malls than I could at a racetrack, but then I'd have a different set of rules to play by. So, but basically, this thing talks about Copart's growth, the rising total losses, why insurance companies do actually like totaling vehicles. It is part of the healthy ecosystem of claims, right? If the salvage value is really high, then we're not going to waste time fixing it. We're just going to total it out. What that does is it ripples down through the collision industry when the total loss ratio does increase. I took the names of this company out. I'm sure some of you got this email. It may be in your spam or whatever. But this company's primary, I didn't give them too much attention, but it looks like they want to try to talk you into selling your shop. So obviously they rolled through that, but I just thought it was interesting that now the whole 47% total losses and all that is being pushed even further, right? Like it's being used as a reason for maybe saying my shop should want to sell and get out. I think it's perfect time to be in the industry. If this next year is not going to be not going to be easy. There's heartburn and long nights, and I always talk about a shop owner. What people don't see when they own a body shop, particularly technicians will always talk about how the shop owner's just keeping money for himself. And I kind of laugh and go, wait till you own your own shop, jackass. But that, night or two before payroll, when the shop owner's laying on the floor in the fetal position crying, and they may not make their own house payment, and they may not pay themselves, and they may not pay their kids, uh, lunch money that month or whatever, but they do whatever they can to make payroll. It's hard. It's going to be a hard year. There's just no way around it. There's no easy fixes. People call me right now and go, how do I fix this? And what do I do? And I go, I have no idea. Like, there's no do this and things are going to be fine. But I think the other side of that is really good for the independent repairer, that ability to pivot, the ability to be small and stay functional, where you're not dependent on a big workforce. That's one of the problems with the MSOs, is they can't run those shops. Like, they're dependent on an external workforce. They have to hire people, where a lot of us as independents, I haven't, it's been a long time since I've like worked on a car, and my work is not great. But I could go back to it if I needed to. I could go back to painting if I needed to. I'd be really pissed because I do enjoy air conditioning, and I don't like getting dirty and all those things anymore. But I could do it if I had to. And I know there's a lot of shops out there with a lot of owners that are like, I could go back to being a tech if I needed to. Like, we can do things in these small independent family businesses and be a little self-sustainable that a lot of these corporate shops can't do. They are reliant on third parties. So I think there's a sunny day coming for us, that we're going to have some great opportunities, but we will have to walk through some fire and some deserts and some stuff like that to get there. So, but that was good. All right, let's talk about what probably is going to make the OEs tell me not to board my flight. I'm going anyway, so it's no big deal. If they tell me not to come, if you're in Michigan and you won't mind me hanging out, I will come hang out with you for a while for this week until my return flight. All right, so I saw this the other day, and God, did it piss me off. But it was an industry, what do I want to call them? I would call them a sport coat jerk, but that probably wouldn't play well politically correctness. So they're an industry influencer, we'll just say that, and they pop up at a lot of things, talking about how being an OE certified shop gives the shop this credibility, and that is the absolute biggest bullshit I have ever heard in my life. That is a story to try to make you want to be an OE certified shop, but there is no credibility in being OE certified, and most of that is to blame to the OE. Because there was no standards for most of these OE certified programs, and even the ones that are parts restricted, supposed to be the high end, zero standards whatsoever. We have DRP shops on the program, we have MSOs on the programs, and so you have a shop over here that wants to do the right thing, that reads the repair procedures, novel in concept, and says, hey, all of these things have to be done. I have to like do these safety checks, and I have to do these scans and calibrations, and I've got to do this, and I can't structure, I can't do this repair. I have to do this replace. And then there across the street is somebody with the same damn certification on their wall that's had the same damn re-inspector come in and verify both of them, that's doing something completely different. That shop over there is doing aftermarket parts. They're putting used stuff on. They're not doing all the safety checks. They're not doing... So there's no credibility in a program that has completely opposite ends of the spectrums available in any market. Just not. Like, there should never be a DRP on an OE certified program. Those two things cannot exist. I was the DRP director. Like, I'm the one telling you they cannot exist together at all. And I still have people come online and go, we're OE certified and we're DRP and we follow the procedures. No, you don't. You don't. Like, I partially wrong is still wrong, right? There's one way to do it, and that's the right way. Some people do a better version of wrong than others, but wrong is still wrong, and there's no excuse for wrong. So you can't say, well, we're good, but, it's just wrong, I always say that little white spot on Pure Country, the George Strait movie, the little white speck on the top of chicken shit is still chicken shit. Same thing, right? So there is no credibility in being OE certified unless every shop that is OE certified in that particular OE's program does the exact same level of repairs, follows the exact same procedures, and sings from the exact same hymnal. But as long as you've got some that are over here not doing it and doing DRPs and doing whatever, then it doesn't give you credibility to be OE certified. It actually takes it away. And when we look at what OEs continue to do to erode their own certification, I don't see the point. So please do not believe that being OE certified gives you credibility to insurers or gives you credibility to the consumer. Because if the consumer can pick up the phone and call somebody else that has that same little designation and they're going to tell them something completely different, well, then who's the customer supposed to believe, right? Credibility basically means, I love the definition, being capable of being believed, believable, a credible statement, worthy, this is my favorite, worthy of belief, confidence, or trustworthy. And I think there's a lot of us out there with a lot of little plaques on our wall, and we are not worthy of the customer's trust. We put those plaques on the wall for the wrong reasons, and we have them there for the wrong people. We didn't put them there for the customer if we're truly honest with ourselves. But do not think that OE gives you any credibility. For the most part, it will set you up for a lot of liability because there are several cases in which juries have come back and said, you should have known better. You were OE certified. So if you're not doing all the post-collision safety checks, and if you guys watch, I'm a big fan of Mike Anderson's podcast. I talked to him once before and he was like, and this is too hard. It's too much. I don't think I want to do it. And I go, I know it's a lot, right? But keep doing it. Where he talked about and he showed OE safety inspections after a collision. They're involved, right? There's a lot to them, measuring steering columns and doing all that. If you're not going to do all that, then just get off the program because you're killing it for everybody else. And if you guys go to these stupid meetings and you sit in these stupid rooms with all these other people in their sport coats and you know they're not doing them, then why the hell are you there? Right? You're just adding to the credibility problem. You're not enhancing it. I've had some shops call me and go, Kristen, we agree with you, but we're in it because we're going to work hard. It's the same people that used to call me and go, yeah, Kristen, I'm going back to work for the insurance companies because I think that by working from within, I can make big changes. No, you can't. Like you can't. I mean, like whatever lets you go to sleep at night for why you're taking that payroll or whatever, I'm fine with. But let's just call it what it is. On the same line, the OEs have done a lot to really add to the liability that they have. I think some of the people making these decisions on the collision side of the OEs probably ought to spend more time sitting down and talking to the legal department within the OEs because it sounds really good. And there's a lot of people that do truly believe, well, we have no liability. All the liability will go to the shop. And that's not true. So Ford announced, why is it always Ford? Ford announced that they have in their certified collision network, they're now having an inaugural pinnacle performer winners. And that just was like, wow, that's dumber than dumb right there. Like we used to talk in the insurance industry. We had to stop giving awards to body shops. And I know some insurers will still do these performance awards. We had to stop it because there was liability. There was a lawsuit that happened and basically it said, look, if you're looking at all these shops and you're determining which ones are the elite performers, then you should have determined who the bad performers were and kicked them off. Makes logical sense, right? But so here we were over just giving an award to go, and this is our best DRP shop of the year over here. And it was logical, or then I would say it was illogical for us to go into a deposition and say that we weren't aware that that shop was having problems because clearly we had said we were looking at stuff. So this is what Ford's done. Ford's basically said that they're going to make the judgment based on repair planning. So that would mean that the shop should be looking at OE procedures and documenting that on the repair plan. So that would mean that if I had a shop that was Ford certified that wasn't documenting and writing the repair plan in accordance with the repair procedures, I should probably move them from my program, counsel them, put them on some sort of performance plan, something like you're getting all these estimates sent to you and now you're telling me you're looking at them. Part of this article is they release, I just will say this, Ford, if you're listening, here's a heads up. Some of the people that you put in this press release have post-repair inspection buybacks. You might want to get a handle on that. Preparation, that they're measuring and that they understand steel and aluminum procedures. Oh, so we're now also going to know that the shops had the vehicles on the benches every time they needed to be in the benches and stayed on the benches the whole time, particularly for certain sectioning procedures. You're grading their welding, brazing, and bonding. The shit you say. How are you doing that one? Like, who's doing that one? Who's going out and looking and grading the welding and bonding capabilities of your shops? You're judging their body and finishing and then their quality control, production, and pre-delivery. Okay, Ford, it sounds to me that if you had this program and you're monitoring all of your stores because you're going to pick who these pinnacle performers are, which is great, that I know of a lot of people that if you had looked at these things, there's no way you would have let them stay on your program. So how are they still there, right? And then if you are looking at all of that, and then one of these post-repair inspections, most of them, are not because of a collision incident. They're because, the car's leaking and has a swimming pool in the trunk right now. But let's say it was a wreck. Let's say it's a post-secondary collision with injury. Let's say it's John Eagle, right? Can Ford now come to the table and say they had no idea that this repair facility wasn't doing cars right based on all of the stuff that they say they're now tracking? I always tell people, we used to say this in the insurance industry, there's things I can reward or award, and there's things I can't. There's some things that I have to just stop by and go, good job, right? Because I don't want to testify that I was looking at these things or I was monitoring these things or I was tracking these things. A lot of our OEs, and not just Ford, we know Tesla right now wants to review estimates. And I'm like, who in the hell within Tesla currently on their staff is going to review estimates and determine whether that's a proper repair plan? And I'm waiting for the first time that they say something needs to be changed on the estimate. And so are several shops with attorneys as well. But in this desire to try to drive value around the program, which I believe every OE is suffering. We're going to talk about why there's no FNOL on the next slide. But in this desire to drive value, to try to make people feel good about this $2,500, $3,000, $3,500 a year that they're writing, and then all these rules or whatever you're making them follow, we're going to have an awards program, and that'll drive value. We want to do something that looks and feels like, BMW has their store of the year and Lexus has their store of the year. Everybody's going that way. It's probably not where you want to go. Like right now, with the overall repair quality is down all around the industry. It feels like with all of these, we have procedures available. We have all this shit available to us we've never had before. It should be better. It's not. It's getting worse. And so this just really is not a good idea, But careful what you value, because you're going to have to tell a jury one day why you valued it and if you took that seriously or if it was lipstick on a pig, so to speak. So speaking of lipstick on the pig, all right, we've covered several of the OE lawsuits right now where different states are suing OEs for sharing private information, selling that information or whatever. In an interesting twist this past week, to respond to the lawsuit in Georgia, General Motors they're one of the OEs accused of selling what would be considered private use data, driving history, et cetera, of consumers to third parties. And there are two third parties named, and we're going to tell you why you need to pay attention to those third parties as well. But this is my favorite defense. GM has argued that they did not violate any privacy status because the cars are being operated on public roads. Yeah, like that was interesting. Now, to their credit, I love a good legal strategy. So I love it when there's actually somebody that's thought. GM noted that driving data includes vehicle location, routes, braking, speed, all of which occur on a public thoroughfare. And they cited a 2015 case where a court determined that someone being surveilled by a drone did not have their privacy violated because that surveillance was taking place in the open public. Okay, to me, these are way two different things, but I thought that was a nice grab. I mean, like I do appreciate, like I said, a really good response to a lawsuit, and so that was interesting. Now pay attention, LexisNexis and Verisk have been named in this lawsuit with with General Motors. It's not just GM. There's some other ones. I'm going to flip to another one here in a minute. What you need to know is LexisNexis and Verisk pop up all the time. And you can go research repair driven news or whatever. And I just put a little insert here because they work with the OEs. So there's a story from last year where Kia and LexisNexis got together, and they're going to provide build data to insurers for rating and insurer potential. And then there's this story where Verisk and CCC are partnering to mitigate fraud and AI claims. Those two people are all over our data, typically with our estimating companies. So to have them get named in a privacy suit with the OEs is really interesting, and I'm going to keep an eye on that. I don't imagine any of you want to keep an eye on that. But there's another one. I think I may have got things out of order, so I'll get to it when we get to it. All right, let's talk about the UPS cutting the 20,000 jobs. So this got posted last week. It doesn't have anything to do necessarily with collision repair, but I really liked it and I wanted to talk about it a little bit. UPS on their own decided to cut down on Amazon deliveries by 50%. So you had UPS sit back and look at their business and go, we have a large chunk of business that is coming from these Amazon deliveries. In other words, they felt too much. There was too much in that bucket. And that while it was a lot of gross revenue, in the end, it wasn't a lot of net. So we're busy and we're big and we've got people and we've got trucks and we've got all of this stuff for this line of business that isn't really a healthy net. There's not a lot of profit there. And so that by 2026, they want to decrease half of their involvement with Amazon. And to do that, they're going to, cut jobs, they're going to cut some locations and all that. And while I was reading that, I was thinking, kudos UPS, because we had a lot of jobbers in this industry that service accounts that are almost zero profitability. Some of them are MSO, MLOs, regionals, nationals, et cetera. And when you ask them about the business, they'll go, well, it's got a big chunk of revenue, right? Like they're buying stuff and that's a big check. But when you look at, it's not a lot of net because they're buying it at a huge discount. And then we have to put trucks and we have to go service it and we have to do whatever. And so they're spending lots of money for very, very little amount in return. And now that little, I mean, I'll be honest, if I'm making 3%, on millions and millions of dollars, that 3% looks pretty good, right? But it was just great to see this because I think in our industry right now, we have a lot of jobbers, vendors, et cetera, people that are going to have to make some very tough decisions to determine whether being large to service something for such a low net, is that sustainable? And do they need to make changes as well? And then it's going to be really interesting to see how that affects, instead of a trickle down, how that will trickle up. So when those large companies and corporations lose some of the power that they've been holding over these vendors and even some paint companies and whatever, where they just keep this race to the bottom almost to keep giving better discounts, and we're gonna create more services that you don't have to pay for for whatever. But so UPS making that decision was interesting. I think it's a sign of the times. I think as this year kind of goes through, you're going to see more and more people or more and more companies somewhat have to face those same decisions. We did some of that here in Collision Hub. There was a time several years ago, I had 20-something people on staff, and we were shooting catalogs and TV commercials and print ads and doing whatever. And the return by the time you had all those people was just low. And we got down, and I was like, well, where's most of my money? Court cases. Well, I do really well in court cases. So how do we free up time where I can do more of that? So we'll see more companies do that. All right, what's on the shelf for this episode? I thought I would go ahead, speaking of paint companies and speaking of lawsuits, right? Like I know I have this really great collection of all Pete the Painter memorabilia. These are my Pete the Painter bobbleheads, and I've got all of them. This one is the 2014 edition. And I know that PPG is not supposed to say Pete the Painter, and they're not supposed to have a Pete the Painter likeness anywhere at all. And so I have a Pete the Painter tattoo. And I will say Pete the Painter every time I can get a chance to. Very similar to when I was working at State Farm. We called it the CAT team, capital CAT. and we made t-shirts and hats and whatever, and Caterpillar sued us and said that they owned CAT, and we lost, and I called it the cat team every time I can, and I will continue to, and I got a tattoo for the cat team as well. But yeah, no, I've got a Pete the Painter collection. I grew up spraying PPG. It's my comfort zone. I spray it a lot. I don't, I've changed paint lines recently, and in fact, this week I'm going to be making some announcements about paint lines. But growing up as a kid, Pete the Painter was a huge part of my life, and so you can see, wait, there is the rest of my bobblehead collection, and it goes into several rooms, and there's Pete the Painter signs and neon lights and everything. So I'm a big fan of Pete, so there's a lot of Pete on my shelf, and I will say Pete every chance I get, and I'm hoping that I don't even know who claimed to own the Pete the Painter thing and why PPG got sued, but whoever that company is, I hope you have a difficult, rough life with lots of rashes and other things in here, because Pete the Painter was an icon. Just part of Ditzler, like and that never should have ever gone away. So, yeah, that one makes me mad. All right, that's it. I mean, I'm sure that you probably had to watch this in 3 or 4 or 5 segments because I had to make up for 2 weeks. Next week will probably be shorter unless something happens this week, or if I get more responses and people that are only certain people that are allowed to respond to me online. But we'll keep an eye on that one and see where it goes. If you guys hear anything or you get any emails, we'll obviously shoot those over. I would love to have them and see them and read them out loud, and continue to entertain people and grow my fan base over there in the DFW market. So I will see you guys next week, and I am on my way to Michigan. Bye.